Hi, you're in the office with Joseph Skoda. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something really dear and close to my heart. It has to do with veterans' benefits. Compensation benefits, most likely, is what I'm talking about. So the title today is Veterans, regardless of your age, regardless of your service, regardless of how much time you spent in the military, you really need to apply for any benefits that you're eligible for. Let me explain. Many years ago, a lot of Vietnam veterans, a lot of Korean veterans, and even services before that were denied treatment or compensation for their service. We hear about you had to be in combat to actually show you were serving, that you would deserve some compensation for your troubles. We heard about post-traumatic stress or shell shock, things that may not really have happened back in the day. Well, let me tell you, first of all, if you're a veteran, you need to apply for something. Most of us have bumped our head, fell down, sprained an ankle, or seen or heard of something that still affects us years after we get out of the military. And quite frankly, if we do not apply for those compensation benefits, one day Congress could deny it. They could say, well, we do not have enough veterans applying for these benefits, so obviously it's not an issue. So seriously, apply, even if you don't think you earned something. For instance, I worked on the flight line for many years of service. I bumped my head on a couple wings. I tripped and fell on the flight line. I did all kinds of things. But actually, the noise in the background affected me quite a bit. I have something now called tinnitus, where I hear ringing in the ears from time to time. And obviously, I have some hearing loss. As so many of us do, we don't recall. We just think maybe we're getting older and we're going to hear less anyways. What's the big deal? That may be true. But the bottom line is if something happens to you while you're in the military that wasn't there before you joined, you're obviously affected. And it's real important that we reach out to a veteran service officer or another claims specialist from one of the other veterans organizations, such as the VFW, the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans, Paralyzed Veterans of America. We have lots of organizations stepping up and trained to help you with your struggle with the benefits. Now, I'm talking about a lot of people during the Vietnam and Korean War time that I'm talking about were denied. And that's sad. That's a big black mark on the American history and our government back in the day. Well, over the last couple of years, they've been spending more and more time making sure the veteran gets the benefits that they deserve. As we know, a lot of Vietnam veterans were exposed to Agent Orange. And we found out over the last couple of decades that you do not have to actually serve in the country of Vietnam to be exposed to that. For instance, people in California had to ship that Agent Orange in barrels overseas, and those barrels hit places like Kadena or Japan, Guam, a lot of other places before they ever made it to Vietnam. A lot of people are handling those kind of chemicals without the proper mask, without gloves on. Didn't think twice about it. Could have just been fertilizer. We didn't know. And what about the asbestos in a lot of those buildings and the paint, the lead-based paint that was prevalent back in the early 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even early 80s? Those things can affect our breathing, our lungs, can affect skin conditions. For instance, I was in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East for about 2.5 years. See the black smoke in the air. You can smell it. You can feel it. Today I have a thing called psoriasis and some other skin issues, which I tie back to that time. I never had it before the military, Never had it before I joined. So I'm tying it all back to what I was exposed to during those times of deployment. We need to be careful. We need to apply for the Gulf War syndrome. We need to be on those registries because even our shot records back in the day, we used the gun when I came in and go from one person to the next person to the next person. Maybe you got something out of that needle from the person before you and they kept spreading it. Now, sometimes our government, our military didn't know the potential threats they were giving us, and maybe they did. Regardless, it's up to you and I to apply for those benefits. Don't be stubborn. A lot of us, especially men, when we leave the military, we don't have time to worry about our back hurting, our head hurting, or even a ringing in the ears. We had to find jobs to support our families and our loved ones. And rightfully so. And most men didn't complain about their back hurting or their leg hurting because everyone's legs and backs hurt, especially if you do a manual labor. Totally understandable. But times have changed, and more consideration has finally been given to us, and we need to take advantage of what is offered us. On another note, most veterans are entitled to the GI Bill, especially getting out. I believe now anyone getting out recently is entitled to the GI Bill the rest of their lives. And in some cases, you could transfer it to your children or maybe even your spouse. And we also have the VA loan home guarantee, where you can purchase a home, I think up to 435,000, and it changes all the time. Where we get a guaranteed loan and it helps us qualify the banks better. And if you're retired military or disabled veteran, in some cases you don't not even have to pay property taxes or the fees or to register your car. Depends on where you live, of course, and those change with the different politicians year in and year out. I totally understand. But the bottom line is, if you spent one day in the military or 20 or 30 years, most of us have experienced something, have heard something, have hurt ourselves. It affected us in one way or another, and we need to reevaluate what we may be entitled to. I've seen people never complete basic training, but the mental issues of not completing, as well as the physical ailments that they received or that were prevalent during the time, they were entitled to compensation later on. Now, a lot of us have broken bones or maybe lung issues or skin issues before we join the military. But whether it's the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, or even Coast Guard, and they accept us with the condition we know beforehand that gets worse through our service, you better believe that you're entitled to something. Now, go to your local veteran service officer or go to one of the veterans groups I talked to you about. But make sure you have your discharge paperwork, which for most of us is called a DD Form 214. You're going to want to have your discharge paperwork and hopefully some kind of timeline. You entered this date, you went here this time, you went there another time. We need to know your job descriptions, your MOS, your AFSC. We need to know your additional duties and where you were deployed to. Real important, where you were deployed to, maybe your shot record, if you have awards or medals or decorations showing that you were deployed and you earned something for whatever you did. That's exciting, but it shows proof that you were there. And of course, your medical records. And one more thing I encourage people to bring in is their performance records. You see, I've been working with the disabled American veterans and helping people file claims for a couple years. I've been a commander of the American Legion and disabled American veterans in my local community for several years. And I have a passion with this. Because as they say, you use it or you lose it. So make sure if you're entitled to any benefit, and even if you were denied 10, 20, 30 years before, have someone relook at it. Have someone reopen a case or file a new claim altogether. Look for the experts. Sure, you can do it by yourself, and there is a ebenefits.gov that can help you do everything yourself, and maybe you're better off. But it doesn't hurt to have someone else look for what you have. A lot of us have depression, anxiety, post traumatic stress from something we've seen, something we heard, something that we actually experienced. And I know once we got in the military, a lot of us are looking for work and we don't have time to think about those things in our head. You know, the voices in our head that don't come out strong enough until we retire or out of work, or maybe the empty nest syndrome. Whatever it is, a lot of us have been affected by different things, and take it to heart, because if we don't apply for those benefits, someday we may lose them. I've been a retired officer in the United States Air Force, but I started enlisted and worked my way up, and I had my own struggles. My own brothers who were in the military, they had their own struggles, and a lot of my friends did. Now, we all don't have the same issues, but a lot of us have similar issues. If you haven't signed up on the Agent Orange registry, do it now. Gulf War registry, do it now. What happens is Congress or whoever decides that people in that registry were exposed to something we didn't know about back then, there's an easier chance for you to apply for benefits later. Or maybe even our government will reach out and find you and say, hey, we have something for you. Regardless of what it is, even if you have a 0% rating, let's just say you have a rash on your arm and the military can't decide, well, it may or may not be military related, but there's something there. We'll give you 0% now, and maybe 4, 5, 10 years later, if it gets worse, call us back and maybe we'll give you some money. But even with the 0% rating, you have a disability rating and are entitled to certain benefits. We all want the extra compensation, but even extra benefits to get vocational rehab to go to school, or maybe just a little bit. You get enough, you get go to the state parks or national parks for free, or free registration on your car. Those all add up. So sometimes the monetary thing we're looking for, or other times just the benefit. But all of us are entitled to something. And make sure you get a VA card from your local Veterans Administrative Medical Clinic, because that can give you discounts at restaurants or auto repair, some other places. So always apply for something you may be entitled to. Some people might laugh and say, who are you? Who cares? But you and I are veterans, military veterans. I'm honored to have served 21 years in the United States Air Force. A lot of my brothers and sisters were not able to spend as much time as me, and I know several that left the earth way too soon. Bottom line is, we all experience and know something. Apply for your benefits or find someone to help you. Never give up. A lot of us, even in the Social Security system, I'm told, get denied the first time. Probably true. Understandably, the government, regardless of which agency, wants to save money and possibly even give you a hard time collecting what is yours to begin with. Never give up. Appeal as often as you have and get the help wherever you need to. Anyways, this is Joseph Skoda. I'm giving you points. If you're a military veteran, whether you serve 1 day or 30 or 40 years, you may be entitled to something. Apply, see what's out there, and never give up if it's a real issue. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your brothers and sisters in arms, you owe it to the government to let them know that many of us are still suffering and not getting the help that we deserve. This is Joseph Skoda. Have a great day and apply for benefits right away. Bye now.